I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game Secret Hitler, but basically, it's this game that sort of acts as like Mafia, if you ever played that, where there's two teams. There's the fascists, who are the evil people, and then the liberals, who are trying to stop the evil people. And basically, how either team wins is each side tries and pass their own policies. There's liberal policies and fascist policies, and whoever reaches a certain number first wins. But another caveat is that the fascists, if they elect Hitler, if they've passed enough fascist policies beforehand, they can automatically win. Likewise, vice versa, if the liberals find out who Hitler is and decide to kill Hitler, I think they win if enough liberal policies have been passed. There was an instance where I was playing with my friends who were from Ohio. I know, Ohio. But for some reason, I always gave off the energy that I just couldn't be trusted, even when I was a liberal, and my other fellow liberals would get mad or kind of question my motives, and I would just always look sus for some reason, even though I was trying my hardest not to. I still really don't understand why that was the case back then. Regardless of what team I was or not, everyone was sus of me, so I decided that was something I would use to my advantage and use to kind of disguise what team I was when I was on the fascist side. Lo and behold, I open up my card and it says I'm a fascist. The game goes on, and I don't really remember the exact details, but there was an instance where one of my fellow fascist buddies got themselves outed. And it wasn't looking good because I was playing the long game of passing very nice, very elegant liberal policies to make sure I go under the scenes unnoticed. And that's when disaster struck. We were immediately already behind the game. It was me and one other person, and then Hitler left. Again, the details are still a little fuzzy, so maybe I'm making some of the story up. But it went along something like it was pretty much doomed for the fascists to take over and do their evil laughs and win the game. So I knew the risks, I knew what I had to do, and calculated it, and it seemed like taking the vote Hitler route was our best option of winning because we're running out of time. So, in a very glaring way, a very bold way of proving my right among the sheep, I outed the other fascist. I blamed him, said he was an evil, dirty man, and that he should not be allowed to be chancellor or have any elected powers. I believe this is where the game pretty much ended up, where we had the choice between me and another liberal. And that other liberal was kind of sus, and I would deceptively lie about their party association. So it was down between me and them, and we couldn't vote on anybody else. And so when it came around to me, with the corner of my eye, I suddenly suggested that the person who was secretly Hitler should be the chancellor. Just because I didn't really trust the other liberal in this situation, and they haven't really done anything wrong was sort of the narrative I was running with, which honestly at the time was terrible. I'm really bad at playing this game, but I went for it. One of the liberals rightly saw through all of this and understood what I was doing, but throughout the whole chaos, they insisted I elect the person I recommended. And so with our votes, it came narrowly down to just one deciding vote, and Hitler was elected chancellor, and the risk paid off. It's like that feeling in Among Us when you're the imposters and you already know that you won the game, but you're at that brief period where the game's not over yet, but you know it's over. And it's that insider feeling of us twiddling our little Hitler mustaches. That was really cool. Obviously, it's a very rare moment because I'm terrible at lying and everyone sees through me. But this was one of the few moments where I remembered what happened and was something really cool. I don't know if I'll be able to do it again. But essentially, the point of that story is you need to know when to roll the dice. There's only certain times and certain places where it makes sense to take that risk, and making sure you're aware of calculating everything and putting everything together before taking that chance is what will really set you apart and make you hit on those risks more than if you were just blindly taking risks. You know, without risk, you can't really see much growth, and that sort of rule is really abundant and apparent in life in all types of aspects, whether it's stocks, career changes, choices you make, lifestyle factors, you name it. Like, everything is just a game of risk and choosing whether to take it or not, and sort of determining which one is the best avenue for you in that time. I think the first thing that you have to keep in mind when you're about to take a risk or take a chance is know yourself in those instances. Like, for example, me, I know I'm a little bit more risk taking than risk averse. So I need to fine tune my decisions with that in mind, to where maybe I need to hold back on a little bit on my strategy or my processing in making a decision compared to most people, because I see it in my life and looking back in certain instances. I take a ton of risks without really thinking. In video games, for example, there are times where I'll overextend or push too much away from the team, or do things solo, or go in for a kill that I really shouldn't have needed to do, because the risk was by far outweighed the benefits of getting that kill and just getting the team killed, and then my team just falling apart just because they're down a person. Gambling's another example of this. I'm very susceptible to chasing my losses, doubling down, of putting more money than I really should, just because I want to see that growth, that immediate 10x trajectory, regardless if it goes up and down. And it's a very volatile way of living life. But if you can really minimize the bad decisions, I think it's the quickest way to grow as a person. It's just knowing when to time that decision making. I am not advocating for gambling, by the way. So this is not a sign to just go ahead and bet all your life savings on red or whatever, or black. But takes, for some instances, people who play a lot more passive in navigating their way through life, not taking that risk to talk to that person, or not risking investing your money into the S&P 500 or into stocks. Sure, your losses natively aren't anything crazy, but what you're forgetting about is the opportunity cost of what you're missing out of when you don't perform those kinds of decisions. And I feel like a lot of people forget about that. Just like how there's a lot of people like me that forget about how it's okay to pull back and not bet on that game, or use that promo to boost your odds, or not to invest right now because you have other emergencies going on. It's important to have that balance of the two. And I'm sure you've heard it tons of times, but I think the biggest thing is we forget about that when we're in those situations, and we kind of forget about ourselves and what we would inherently do. Being prepared and researching is another step into this, because the more information you gather, the less variables you have to worry about when you're deciding whether to make that purchase or not, or pull the trigger or not. And with more information, you can just be more well versed into what you're getting into, and that a lot of times will help bolster your path into making better decisions. Now, it's kind of a bit overlapping when it comes to your gut feelings and versus logic and trusting your instincts, because there are some instances where everything doesn't make sense to you. Like, mathematically, things are not supposed to play out how you think they are, but there's some kind of feeling in you, some kind of acknowledgement subconsciously that's telling you that you should go along with this. You should take that bet on yourself, or take that path down in life, even though it doesn't make sense. There's some instances where I believe that's important to recognize, and not always to stick by the book, even though mathematically you're supposed to. There are times where you just have that feeling that's just above even your brain in some instances that you just need to take and trust in that path. So that's like one little caveat that I will say when you're going through this. And it's a very important one because I personally believe your gut says a lot. It tells you a lot of things that you might not know. It's just another veil of information that you don't quite understand, but you kind of lean into in a sense. And maybe there's like a little game in there too where you kind of have to balance it out versus your gut feeling versus your logic of the situation and sort of balancing that. Maybe there's like a game inside of a game in that regards. But I think it's something important to keep in mind of if you haven't already. Lastly, I think it's important to understand the role of emotions in this. A lot of people have that fear of failure, not achieving something or coming up short of it and having to deal with the emotions of embarrassment, shame, guilt, loss, all those feelings of just missing out. But you can also see of it as like another chance of learning. Like that's another lesson learned. My business failed. I didn't promote it at all, or I wasn't promoting it successfully. And it's important to take a step back, evaluate it, and sort of do like a report, a conclusion of it, of what went wrong, what can you change next time, and then build upon that. And if you continue to just put those building blocks in, you'll be on your way into achieving whatever you want in no time. Okay, maybe not whatever you want, but it's definitely a good, helpful thing to know. And something to just call back on every time. And just reflect on your actions. For example, I never reached past Diamond in Overwatch. Probably because I was too aggressive. I was not working with the team well. There was instances where my positioning needed to be better and waiting was my best option. But there's going to be times where waiting might be your worst option. And it's just evaluating that in the context, and as you practice that over and over again, you'll get better at it and understand who you are and what role you play in those situations. And then you build on your evaluation and you can trust that more, and then you have more evidence that, wow, okay, I know this is what's going to happen with this in this different scenario. Maybe I can apply that to somewhere else. And that keeps going on and on and on. And so you kind of get the gist. Maybe this is sort of self-explanatory, but I wanted to put something out there that it's important to just know. This is like a good rule to live by, in my opinion. I want to hear what anybody else's thoughts are on this. Maybe you have different opinions or something that I missed. Please let me know. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Just me yapping about risk-taking. I would love to see some admissions at some point. Those are always welcome, and I just want to say thanks for reaching at this point in the video, and I'll see you guys next time.